In the previous example, we found out that the yield to maturity of a semi-annual coupon bond with a 7% coupon rate and a face value of $1,000 maturing in 15 years was equal to 12%. Our yield to maturity was 12%. The bond equivalent yield is simply this effective semi-annual rate, which is 6%, multiplied by 2. Right? So if we take the effective semi-annual rate and you multiply it by 2, then you get the so-called bond equivalent yield. But the bond equivalent yield is just a market convention to quote the bond yield, right? The effective annual yield to maturity, and I underline the word effective, is something else, is calculated differently, right? So what is the effective annual yield to maturity? The effective annual yield to maturity, which we will indicate as a capital Y, is the actual yield that the investor receives, and it takes into account of the compound interest as well. So to fix ideas, let's have a look to a simple example. And suppose that you are investing $1, right, at an annual yield to maturity of 12%, right? So we take the number as the previous example. So this 12% is the bond equivalent yield. And in this particular case, we also assume that the number of times when you are receiving an interest payment is equal to 2. So, interest is paid biannually. So we invest $1 today. After 6 months, how much are we going to have? Well, we are going to have our dollar, which is multiplied by 1 plus 0.12, which is the yield to maturity, divided by 2, right? Because we have to consider only the interest that we receive after 6 months. And therefore, at the end of the 6 months, we will be left with $1.06. Now, what happens if instead I calculate my principal and interest amount that I'm receiving at the end of the year? So in this case, I will have $1, which multiplies 1 plus 0.12 divided by 2 squared, because in 1 year there are 2 semesters, right? And therefore, I'm obtaining $1.1236, right? So this is the amount of money that I'm going to get after 12 months. And the effective annual yield, right, to maturity is calculated in this way. It's calculated as big Y, which is equal to 1 plus 0.12 over 2 squared minus 1. And this is equal to 0.1236 or 12.36%, which is bigger than the bond equivalent yield of 12%. Okay? So this tells you exactly what is the effective yield to maturity that you're getting for investing $1 today for 12 months. That wraps it up for the moment. In the next unit, we are going to take a look at Excel examples.